Admiral Han Jiho stood in the command center on Earth, watching the screens with growing horror. His hands gripped the edge of the console so hard his knuckles turned white. On every display, the same terrible images played. Nova Terra was dying. The Vorath Empire had arrived 3 hours ago. Their massive fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel above the human colony world without warning. 10 billion people lived on Nova Terra. It was humanity's largest settlement beyond Earth. Now it was becoming a graveyard. The first thing the Vorath did was shut down all the defenses. A powerful electromagnetic pulse swept across the planet. Every military base went dark. Every weapon system failed. The 3 million soldiers of the Colonial Defense Force found themselves helpless. Then the bombardment began. Jiho watched as bright flashes lit up Nova Terra's surface. Each flash was a city being destroyed. Each flash meant millions of deaths. The Vorath were not trying to conquer the planet. They were trying to erase it. What made it worse was that the Vorath were broadcasting everything. Every alien species in the galaxy could watch. The Empire wanted everyone to see what happened when you challenged them. They wanted to teach the galaxy a lesson written in human blood. Emperor Vothrak himself appeared on the screens. The Vorath leader looked almost human, but his skin was gray and his eyes were pure black. He spoke in a voice that was calm and cold. "This is what happens to inferior species," Vothrak said. Humanity thought they could grow and expand without permission. They thought they were equals. Today we remind them of their place. This destruction will take 3 days. We want everyone to watch. We want everyone to learn. 3 days. The Vorath planned to spend 3 days killing everyone on Nova Terra. They could have destroyed the planet quickly, but they wanted to make it slow. They wanted to make it hurt. Jiho's daughter lived on Nova Terra. Her name was Mira, and she had 3 children. His grandchildren. He tried to call them, but all communications were blocked. He could only watch as the sector where they lived was marked for bombardment. Across Earth, billions of people watched the same images. In a military training facility, Captain Lee Daeho stood frozen in front of a screen. He had lived on Nova Terra for 5 years. He knew those streets. He had walked past that school. He had eaten at that restaurant. Now it was all burning. In a research laboratory, Dr. Kim Sora watched her life's work being destroyed. She had trained dozens of students at Nova Terra's university. She had helped build the research center that was now a smoking crater. Her hands shook as she watched, but her mind was already working. Already calculating. Already planning revenge. Lieutenant Choi Mina was only 26 years old. She had grown up on Nova Terra. Her parents still lived there. Her childhood home was in the capital city. She watched as that city was reduced to ash. She did not cry. She was too shocked to cry. Instead, she felt something cold and hard forming in her chest. It was hate. Pure and simple. Ambassador Yoon Ji-won stood in the Galactic Assembly, surrounded by representatives from 100 alien species. She had begged them for help. She had pleaded for intervention. But the Assembly did nothing. They talked about procedures and protocols. They debated and discussed while 10 billion humans died. "This is genocide," Yoon said, her voice shaking with rage. "You must act. You must stop this." The Assembly chairman, a 4-armed creature from a peaceful species, looked at her with something like pity. "We cannot interfere in conflicts between member states. The Vorath Empire has legal standing. We must follow proper channels." "Proper channels?" Yoon could barely speak. "There will not be anyone left to save if we wait for your proper channels." But the Assembly continued to debate while Nova Terra continued to burn. The Vorath ground forces landed on the 2nd day. They did not come to occupy. They came to hunt. Armored soldiers moved through the ruins, killing any survivors they found. The broadcasts showed everything. Parents trying to protect children. Teachers hiding students in basements. Doctors refusing to leave wounded patients. All of them died. The Vorath seemed to enjoy it. They took their time. They made sure the cameras captured every moment. This was their message to the galaxy. This was their demonstration of power. On the 3rd day, the Vorath began hunting the refugees who had fled to the wilderness. Millions had escaped the cities hoping to hide in the forests and mountains, but the Vorath had sophisticated sensors. They tracked down every group, every family, every child. By the end of the 3rd day, Nova Terra was silent. 10 billion people were dead. Emperor Vothrak made one final broadcast. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the dead world below. This is what happens when inferior species forget their place. Let this be a lesson to all who watch. The Vorath Empire is supreme. Submit or share this fate. Then the Vorath fleet departed, leaving Nova Terra as a tomb. On Earth, the government called an emergency meeting. Every leader, every military commander, every representative attended. The session lasted only 1 hour. There was no debate, no discussion. The vote was unanimous. Earth was going to war. Admiral Han Jiho was given supreme military command. He stood before the assembled leaders and made a simple request. He asked for unlimited authority, unlimited resources, and no restrictions on how he fought this war. The Vorath showed us who they are, Jiho said. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the fury underneath. They are genocidal monsters. They kill children for entertainment. They broadcast mass murder as entertainment. There can be no peace with such creatures, no negotiation, no mercy. He paused, making sure every person in the room understood. I am not asking for permission to defeat the Vorath Empire. I am asking for permission to erase it. To make sure no Vorath will ever threaten another species again. I am asking you to let me end them completely. The vote was unanimous. Every hand was raised. Every voice agreed. Earth broadcast its own message to the galaxy. It was short and simple. Humanity would accept nothing less than the complete destruction of the Vorath Empire. There would be no surrender, no negotiation. The Vorath had declared war by massacring civilians. Humanity would finish that war by making sure the Vorath could never threaten anyone again. The operation was given a name that would haunt the galaxy. Operation Alien Extinct. That night, Admiral Jiho stood alone in his office. On his desk was a photo of his daughter and grandchildren. They were smiling. They had been happy. Now they were gone. He picked up the photo and made a quiet promise. I will make them pay. Every single one of them. They wanted to teach the galaxy a lesson. Now we will teach them one. We will show them what happens when you attack humanity, when you kill our children, when you broadcast our suffering for entertainment. He placed the photo back on the desk and turned to his computer. On the screen was a list. Every Vorath world, every colony, every military base, every installation. He began working through the list, planning how to destroy each one. The Vorath thought they had crushed humanity's spirit. They thought the massacre would force Earth to submit. They were wrong. They had not broken humanity. They had awakened something far more dangerous. They had shown humanity that the galaxy was a cruel place where only the strong survived. Now humanity would show them that humans could be crueler and stronger than anyone imagined. Dr. Kim Sora had not slept in 3 days. She stood in a massive underground facility that had been built in secret over the past 20 years. Around her, hundreds of scientists worked at computer stations. Above them, holographic displays showed weapon designs that would terrify any civilized species. These weapons had been developed as theoretical projects. Ideas explored just in case humanity ever needed them. Now those theories were becoming reality. Sora walked past a team working on nanobots that could eat through starship hulls. Another team was building bombs that could destroy targets across any distance using quantum technology. A third team was finalizing something called the Singularity Cannon. Admiral Han Jiho entered the facility and stood beside her. He looked at the weapons being created and felt no guilt, no hesitation. These tools would end the Vorath Empire. That was all that mattered. How long until they are ready? Jiho asked. Sora did not look away from her work. The nanobots are ready now. The quantum bombs need 2 more days. The Singularity Cannon needs a week. We start with what we have, Jiho said. Deploy the nanobots immediately. Across the galaxy, Major Park Hyunwoo prepared for his mission. He led a unit called the Ghost Battalion. They were the best special operations soldiers humanity had ever produced. They could infiltrate enemy territory, complete impossible missions, and escape without being detected. Tonight, they would prove why the Vorath should have feared them. Hyunwoo and his team used experimental stealth technology to approach the Vorath, military command world of Krethon. Their ship was invisible to all sensors. It slipped past the orbital defenses and landed in a remote area. The team moved through the darkness like ghosts. They had 17 targets, 17 Vorath military commanders who needed to die. Technical Sergeant Kang Minho, the team's demolitions expert, carried special equipment. Each target would be eliminated in a way that sent a message. The first commander died in his sleep. Hyunwoo personally cut his throat. No sound, no struggle. Just death in the darkness. They left a message on the wall in Vorath script. "We are coming." By dawn, all 17 targets were dead. The Ghost Battalion had also planted a virus in the Vorath military network. This virus would corrupt communications and spread false information. When the Vorath tried to coordinate their forces, they would find only chaos. The team extracted before anyone realized what had happened. They left behind only bodies and the message painted everywhere. "We are coming." High Commander Draxon, the supreme military leader of the Vorath, stood in the command center on Crethon. He looked at the bodies of his best officers and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Real fear. The humans had walked into the heart of Vorath territory and killed 17 commanders without being detected. If they could do that, what else could they do? Draxon tried to warn Emperor Vothrak, but the Emperor dismissed his concerns. "They are insects trying to sting us," Vothrak said. "They cannot win. They do not have the strength." Draxon was not so sure. Captain Lee Daeho stood on the bridge of his warship, the Retribution. It was a new design, built specifically for this war. The ship looked like a traditional warship, but it carried revolutionary weapons. Today would be its first real test. His target was a Vorath supply convoy protected by 3 heavy cruisers. These cruisers were massive ships with powerful shields and weapons. In a traditional fight, they would be difficult to defeat. But Daeho was not planning a traditional fight. The Vorath relied on energy shields to protect their ships. These shields could deflect lasers and plasma weapons, but they had a weakness. They could not stop solid matter moving at high speeds. The Retribution launched kinetic penetrators. These were solid metal rods accelerated to near light speed. When they hit the Vorath cruisers, the shields did nothing. The rods punched through the hulls like paper. The cruisers exploded in seconds. Escape pods launched from the dying ships. Daeho gave his next order without hesitation. "Destroy all escape pods. No survivors." His crew hesitated for only a moment. They remembered Nova Terra. They remembered 10 billion dead humans. They destroyed every escape pod. Daeho broadcast a message to the Vorath on all frequencies. "Nova Terra sends its regards." Lieutenant Choi Mina sat in the cockpit of her fighter, the Wraith. It was unlike any fighter ever built. Using experimental jump technology, it could make tiny faster-than-light jumps during combat. To enemy pilots, it would seem to teleport around the battlefield. Her first mission was over the contested world of Helios 4. A Vorath patrol squadron of 12 fighters was harassing human ground forces. Mina jumped in alone. The Vorath pilots detected her approach and moved to engage. They had never fought anything like the Wraith. Mina would appear behind a target, fire her weapons, then jump away before they could react. She moved through their formation like a shark through fish. 8 minutes after the fight began, all 12 Vorath fighters were destroyed. Mina had not been hit once. She flew over the human ground forces and waggled her wings. The soldiers below cheered. Fleet Command watched her performance with amazement. They immediately ordered 50 more Wraith fighters to be built. Mina would train the pilots personally. 1 week after the war began, Admiral Jiho authorized the first use of the Singularity Cannon. The target was a remote Vorath mining colony on the edge of their space. The colony had minimal defenses and a small population. It was chosen specifically because destroying it would not affect the main war effort. This was a demonstration. Dr. Kim Sora stood at the firing controls. She had built this weapon. She understood exactly what it would do. When fired, the cannon would create a miniature black hole. This black hole would consume everything nearby before safely collapsing. "Fire," Admiral Jiho ordered. Sora pressed the button. A beam of incredible energy shot across space and hit the mining colony. Reality itself seemed to tear open. A black sphere appeared and began growing. The colony was pulled into it. The 3 moons orbiting the planet were pulled in. 4 Vorath warships that tried to escape were pulled in. Everything vanished into the darkness. Then the black hole collapsed. When it was gone, there was nothing left. The planet was simply erased from existence. No debris, no ruins, just empty space where a world had been. Jiho broadcast the footage across all galactic channels. Just as the Vorath had broadcast Nova Terra's destruction, humanity now broadcast its own message. The galaxy watched in horror as Earth demonstrated it could erase worlds from existence. Emperor Vothrak received the reports in his palace. He watched the footage of the mining colony being destroyed. For the first time, doubt entered his mind. The humans had weapons he had never imagined. Weapons that made his own arsenal look primitive, but doubt quickly turned to rage. He refused to accept that these inferior beings could threaten him. He called his military commanders together and gave them an order. Assemble the fleet, all of it. We will attack Earth itself and crush these humans in their home system. High Commander Draxon tried to object. The humans have revealed weapons we do not understand. They may be stronger than we thought. Attacking their homeworld could be a trap. Vothrak slammed his fist on the table. I do not care about your fears. Assemble the fleet. We will destroy Earth and every human on it. Then the galaxy will remember who rules. Draxon bowed and left to carry out the orders. But privately, he knew this was a mistake. The humans were not acting like a defeated enemy. They were acting like hunters who had found prey. On Earth, Admiral Jiho received intelligence that the Vorath fleet was assembling 5,000 warships, the largest battle fleet ever created. They were coming to Earth, coming to finish what they started at Nova Terra. Jiho smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator whose prey had just walked into its den. Let them come, he said quietly. We have been preparing for this moment for decades. Let them come to Earth. Let them see what happens when they threaten our home. The trap was set. The Vorath were about to learn the difference between attacking an unprepared colony world and attacking a prepared homeworld, defended by beings who had nothing left to lose. 5,000 Vorath warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Their massive vessels filled the darkness of space like a swarm of metal insects. Emperor Vothrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion. He looked at the tactical display showing Earth in the distance. The blue planet hung in space, seemingly defenseless. He smiled. Today we will finish what we started, Vothrak said. Today we destroy the human homeworld, and we will broadcast every moment so the galaxy understands the price of defiance. High Commander Draxon studied the tactical display with growing concern. Something was wrong. Where were the human ships? Standard defensive doctrine would place forces at the system's edge to slow down attackers. But there was nothing. Just empty space, my Emperor. This seems like a trap. We should proceed carefully. Vothrak waved his hand dismissively. They have no ships because we destroyed them. They have no defenses because we are superior. Stop seeing threats where there are none. All ships maximum speed. We will reach Earth in 6 hours. The massive fleet accelerated toward Earth. Behind them, invisible and silent, thousands of mines began activating. These mines had been seeded throughout the solar system over decades. They were coated in special materials that made them invisible to Vorath sensors. Now they woke up and prepared to kill. On Earth, Admiral Han Jiho watched the Vorath fleet approaching. He stood in the planetary command center deep underground. Around him, hundreds of officers monitored the situation. Everyone was calm. Everyone was ready. Status report, Jiho said. An officer responded immediately. All minefields are armed and ready. Defense platforms are at full power. The fleet is in position and waiting for your signal. Jiho nodded. Good. Let them come deeper. Let them think they are winning. The Vorath fleet passed through the outer solar system without incident. They moved past the orbit of Neptune, then Uranus. Still no resistance. Vothrak grew more confident with each passing hour. You see? Vothrak said to Draxon. They are helpless. They are waiting to die. Then everything changed. The fleet passed Jupiter and entered the inner solar system. Suddenly, thousands of mines activated simultaneously. Each mine generated a powerful electromagnetic pulse. The pulses swept through the Vorath formation like invisible waves. Shields across the fleet flickered and died. Sensors went dark. Communication systems failed. In 90 seconds, hundreds of ships were left blind and helpless. Before the Vorath could recover, the mines activated their secondary systems. Each mine released a swarm of kinetic penetrators. These small metal projectiles were accelerated to incredible speeds. They tore through the unshielded Vorath vessels like bullets through paper. 800 ships were destroyed in the first 90 seconds of combat. 800 ships and all their crews, gone before they could even understand what was happening. On the Dominion, alarms shrieked. Draxon watched his tactical display in horror as hundreds of red icons blinked out. 800 ships. Just gone. What is happening? Vothrak shouted. Mines, Draxon said. Hidden throughout the system. Our sensors never detected them. We are blind and our shields are down. Get the shields back online. Reform the battle lines. We still outnumber them. The surviving Vorath ships scrambled to recover. Engineers worked frantically to restore shields and sensors. The fleet began reforming its scattered formation. They pushed deeper into the system toward Earth. Then they saw the defense platforms. Massive orbital structures surrounded Earth, Luna, and Mars. These platforms were unlike anything the Vorath had encountered. They were not just defensive weapons. They were automated factories that produced weapons in real time. Technical Sergeant Kang Minho sat at a control station inside one platform. He monitored production rates and adjusted targeting systems. Around him, machines worked at incredible speeds, building missiles and drones and kinetic rounds. The Vorath are in range, another operator said. Minho smiled. Light them up. The platforms opened fire. Thousands of missiles launched simultaneously. Clouds of drones filled the space between Earth and the attackers. Kinetic weapons fired in endless streams. The Vorath tried to shoot down the incoming weapons, but for every missile they destroyed, 3 more were already being built. The Vorath fleet began taking heavy casualties. They destroyed platforms, but new platforms appeared from behind planets and moons. The humans had built hundreds of these structures. Maybe thousands. The Vorath were drowning in weapons fire. We need to pull back, Draxon said. We are losing too many ships. No, Vothrak refused to accept defeat. Push forward. Break through to Earth. Once we destroy their planet, victory is ours. The fleet pushed deeper. They were now fully committed, deep in Earth's gravity well. It would take hours to retreat to a safe jump distance. They had to win or die trying. That was when Admiral Jiho sprang the final trap. Execute Phase 3, Jiho ordered calmly. From behind Jupiter and throughout the asteroid belt, the United Earth Fleet emerged from stealth. 200 warships appeared as if from nowhere. At their head was the Retribution, commanded by Captain Lee Daho. Daho looked at the tactical display showing the Vorath fleet trapped between his forces and the defense platforms. He thought about Nova Terra. He thought about 10 billion dead humans. His voice was ice cold, all ships weapons-free, no mercy, no survivors. The human fleet attacked from behind while the platforms continued their relentless bombardment from the front. The Vorath were caught in a killing box. They tried to maneuver, but the solar system's gravity wells limited their options. The humans used these same gravity wells to execute impossible maneuvers, whipping around planets at speeds that would crush Vorath crews. Lieutenant Choi Mina led her squadron of 50 Wraith fighters into the chaos. They jumped through the Vorath formation, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Each appearance meant another enemy ship destroyed. The Vorath pilots could not track them, could not predict them, could not stop them. The battle raged for 6 hours. It was brutal and one-sided. The Vorath fought desperately, but they were outmatched. Human weapons were more advanced. Human tactics were superior. And human hatred was absolute. Draxon watched his fleet being torn apart. More than 4,000 ships were gone. Only a few hundred remained combat-capable. The Emperor's flagship had taken heavy damage. They were going to lose. They were going to die here in the human home system. We must retreat, Draxon said. If we stay, we all die. Vothrak stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His mighty fleet, his invincible armada, destroyed by beings he considered inferior. It was impossible. It was humiliating. A human missile struck the Dominion. The flagship shuddered. Another hit. Then another. The shields were failing. The hull was breaching. Give the order, Draxon shouted. All ships retreat. Now Vothrak finally nodded. His pride had cost him everything. Retreat. All ships retreat. The surviving Vorath ships turned and ran. They limped away from Earth, leaving thousands of wrecked vessels behind. The human fleet pursued them to the system's edge, but then stopped. Admiral Jiho had given specific orders. Let some escape. Let them tell others what happened here. As the Vorath fled, Jiho broadcast a message on all frequencies. It was transmitted across the entire galaxy. You came to Earth expecting to find prey. Instead, you found predators. You thought we were weak because we valued peace. You were wrong. Run home, Emperor Vothrak. Tell your people what humanity does to those who threaten our children. Tell them what happened to your mighty fleet. Tell them that we are coming for you. All of you, the Battle of Earth was over. Of 5,000 Vorath ships, fewer than 800 survived. Humanity had lost only 43 vessels. The galaxy watched the footage in shocked silence. The species once pitied as victims had revealed themselves as sophisticated military power. The Vorath Empire, once thought invincible, had been humiliated in their greatest military operation. Ambassador Yoon Ji-won stood in the Galactic Assembly and watched the other species react to Earth's victory. She saw relief in some faces, fear in others. The galaxy understood now that humanity was dangerous. She contacted Admiral Ji-ho after the battle. "We won, but at what cost? The galaxy fears us now." Ji-ho's response was cold. "Good. Let them fear us. Fear will keep them from attacking us like the Vorath did. And we are not done. This was just the beginning. Now we hunt the Vorath to extinction." In Vorath space, Emperor Vothrak sat in his damaged flagship and tried to understand what had happened. He had commanded the greatest fleet ever assembled. He had attacked what should have been an easy target. Instead, he had been crushed. The humans had weapons beyond his understanding, tactics beyond his experience, and hatred beyond his comprehension. For the first time in his life, Vothrak felt true fear. The humans were not going to stop. They were not going to forgive. They were going to come for his empire, and he had no idea how to stop them. After the Battle of Earth, humanity went on the offensive. Admiral Han Ji-ho had promised total destruction of the Vorath Empire, and he meant every word. Human forces spread across the galaxy like a plague, hunting down Vorath worlds one by one. Captain Lee Dae-ho commanded the blockade operations. His strategy was simple and brutal. Human ships surrounded every major Vorath world and cut off all supply lines. Nothing got in. Nothing got out. The Vorath planets began to starve. Dae-ho sat on the bridge of the Retribution, watching his fleet maintain position around a Vorath industrial world. His second-in-command approached with a report. "Sir, civilian freighters from neutral species are requesting permission to deliver food and medical supplies to the planet. They say millions will die without aid." Dae-ho did not hesitate. Denied. "Anyone attempting to break the blockade will be fired upon. No exceptions. But sir, these are civilians, children." Dae-ho turned and looked at his officer. His eyes were cold. The Vorath killed 10 billion human civilians. 10 billion human children. They broadcast it for entertainment. Now they can experience what starvation feels like. My orders stand. The freighters tried to run the blockade anyway. Human weapons destroyed them all. No survivors. The message was clear. Anyone who helped the Vorath was an enemy of humanity. While the blockade slowly strangled Vorath worlds, Dr. Kim Sora unleashed her most controversial weapon. She had created a biological agent designed specifically to attack Vorath physiology. The pathogen would not kill, but it would make victims extremely sick for weeks. Major Park Hyun-woo and his Ghost Battalion were given the mission to deploy it. They infiltrated 6 major Vorath core worlds and released the agent into population centers. The pathogen spread quickly through the Vorath population. Within days, millions of Vorath fell ill. Soldiers could not fight. Workers could not work. The Vorath economy collapsed as their people became too sick to function. Hospitals overflowed. Basic services failed. The empire ground to a halt. Ambassador Yoon Ji-won was horrified when she learned about the biological weapon. She confronted Admiral Ji-ho directly. "This is a war crime. Using biological weapons against civilian populations violates every interstellar law." Ji-ho remained unmoved. The Vorath committed genocide against Nova Terra. They killed 10 billion people in 3 days. My weapon makes them sick for a few weeks. It does not kill them. It is more merciful than they deserve. But we are becoming like them. We are using tactics as brutal as theirs. No, Ji-ho said firmly. We are ending a war as quickly as possible. Every day this war continues means more deaths on both sides. If making Vorath sick for a few weeks prevents months of conventional warfare, then I will use that weapon. My duty is to protect humanity, not to make our enemies comfortable. Yoon had no response. She knew Ji-ho was not entirely wrong, but she also knew humanity was crossing moral lines that should never be crossed. As the Vorath Empire weakened, other species saw an opportunity. For decades, the Vorath had conquered and subjugated dozens of alien races. These species had suffered under Vorath rule. Now they sensed weakness and rose in rebellion. Humanity actively supported these rebellions. Lieutenant Choi Mina led air support missions for rebel ground forces. She flew her Wraith fighter in support of liberation armies, destroying Vorath installations and protecting rebel troops. During one mission over an occupied world, She received a transmission from rebel commanders on the ground. Human pilot. This is General Torvin of the Liberation Army. We thank you for your support. For 50 years my people have suffered under Vorath rule. Today, with your help, we will be free. Mina felt a mix of pride and sadness. She was helping liberate oppressed people, but she also knew humanity was using these rebels as weapons against the Vorath. When the war ended, would humanity treat these species as equals or as tools? The human support came with conditions. Every species that accepted human help had to join the offensive against the Vorath. Many accepted eagerly. They wanted revenge for decades of oppression. A coalition formed around humanity. Operation Alien Extinct was no longer just a human crusade. It had become a multi-species war. While conventional forces fought battles, Technical Sergeant Kang Minho led specialized teams on different missions. Their targets were not military installations but infrastructure. Power grids, water treatment facilities, communication networks, transportation systems. The missions were devastatingly effective. Human cyber weapons corrupted Vorath computer systems at the fundamental level. Electromagnetic pulse weapons permanently disabled technology. The Vorath, who depended heavily on advanced technology, found themselves unable to function. Minho stood in the ruins of a Vorath power generation facility. His team had just disabled it permanently. Around them, the lights of a city that had stood for 1,000 years were going dark. One of his soldiers looked uncomfortable. "Sir, there are 20 million Vorath in that city. Without power, many will die." Minho looked at the darkening city. He thought about Nova Terra, about the 10 billion who had died. Maybe they should have thought about consequences before they attacked us. Move out. High Commander Draxon watched his empire collapse from his command center. Millions of his people were sick from the human plague. Billions more were starving from the blockades. Infrastructure was failing across the empire. Rebel forces were capturing Vorath worlds, and the humans kept coming. He tried to restore the power grids and communication systems, but the human cyber attacks had been too thorough. The damage went too deep. Technology that had taken centuries to develop was corrupted beyond repair. The Vorath Empire was being pushed back to pre-industrial conditions. Draxon requested an audience with Emperor Vothrak. He found the Emperor in his palace still refusing to accept reality. "My Emperor, we must surrender. Our empire is dying. Millions are already dead. Billions more will die if this continues." Vothrak turned on him with fury. "Never. The Vorath Empire does not surrender to inferior species. We will fight to the last, then our species will be extinct," Draxon said quietly. "The humans are not going to stop. They have made that clear. They will keep killing us until there are no Vorath left. Is your pride worth the death of our entire civilization? Better extinction than submission," Vothrak said. Draxon left the palace knowing what he had to do. If the Emperor would not save their species, then he would have to do it himself. He began secretly contacting other military commanders who shared his concerns. A plan formed. A dangerous plan. Meanwhile, Ambassador Yoon Jiwon watched casualty reports coming in from Vorath space. The numbers were staggering. Hundreds of millions of Vorath dead or dying. She brought the reports to Admiral Jiho. "This has to stop. We have made our point. The Vorath are defeated. If we continue, we are committing genocide just like they did." Jiho studied the reports. The Vorath have not surrendered. They have not offered peace terms. Until they do, the war continues. Emperor Vothrak will never surrender. His pride will not allow it. But that does not mean we should kill billions of civilians. Jiho looked at Yoon with tired eyes. "You think I enjoy this? Every night I see the faces of my grandchildren. They were innocent. They did nothing wrong. But the Vorath killed them anyway. Now Vorath children are dying, and you ask me to stop. Tell me, Ambassador, how many human lives is one Vorath life worth? If I stop now and the Vorath rebuild in a century, who will they attack? How many more Nova Terras will there be?" Yoon had no answer. The logic was brutal but not entirely wrong. Still, she felt humanity losing something important, something that made them different from the Vorath. A message arrived from Vorath space. It was from High Commander Draxon, sent through secret channels. He was offering to negotiate, not with Emperor Vothrak's authority, but as a military officer who could deliver a surrender if certain conditions were met. Yoon brought the message to Jiho. "This is our chance to end the war." To stop the killing, Jiho read the message carefully. Draxon was proposing a coup against Vothrak. He would overthrow the Emperor and surrender the Empire if humanity agreed to spare civilian populations. But he had one requirement. He wanted guarantees that humanity would not exterminate the Vorath species. Can we trust him? Jiho asked. I think so. He is trying to save his people. He understands they have lost, Jiho thought for a long time. Finally, he made his decision. Contact Draxon. Tell him I will meet with him personally. But I have conditions of my own. I want Emperor Vothrak delivered to face justice for Nova Terra. If Draxon can do that, I will consider his surrender terms. Yoon sent the message. Draxon responded quickly. He agreed to the terms. He would deliver Vothrak and surrender the Empire. But first he had to take control from an emperor who would rather die than submit. A coup was about to begin. The Vorath Empire was about to tear itself apart from within. And humanity watched, waiting to see if their enemy would deliver the one thing they demanded above all else. Justice for Nova Terra. Justice delivered in the form of the emperor who had ordered the massacre. The hunt was almost over, but the most dangerous moment was still ahead. High Commander Draxon stood before his most trusted officers in a secret location, far from the Imperial Palace. These were commanders who understood that Emperor Vothrak's pride was destroying their civilization. They had seen their empire crumble. They had watched millions die. They knew that only surrender could save the Vorath species now. The Emperor refuses to see reality, Draxon said. He would rather watch our species go extinct than admit defeat. We cannot allow that. Today we take control. Today we save our people. One officer looked worried. If we fail, we will be executed as traitors. If we fail, it will not matter, Draxon replied. The humans will kill us all anyway. But if we succeed, we have a chance to save our civilization. That is worth the risk. The plan was set. They would attack the Imperial Palace simultaneously with the human assault. While human forces drew the attention of loyalist defenders, Draxon's troops would infiltrate the palace and capture Emperor Vothrak. But Draxon did not know that Admiral Han Jiho had already launched the final assault. The United Earth fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel above the Vorath throne world. Hundreds of warships appeared in the sky. Captain Lee Daeho commanded the fleet from the Retribution. He looked down at the planet where the Vorath Empire began. All ships commenced bombardment. Target military installations only. We want the Emperor alive. Human weapons rained down on the Vorath orbital defenses. The defenders fought back desperately, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Within an hour, the orbitals were destroyed. The way to the surface was clear. Lieutenant Choi Mina led her Wraith squadron through the atmosphere. Her orders were to clear the skies of enemy fighters. The Vorath pilots tried to defend their homeworld, but they were no match for the Wraith fighters. Mina's squadron dominated the aerial battle, destroying dozens of enemy craft. On the ground, Major Park Hyunwoo and his Ghost Battalion prepared for their most important mission. They would infiltrate the Imperial Palace and capture Emperor Vothrak. Technical Sergeant Kang Minho checked his equipment one last time. Remember, Hyunwoo said to his team, we want the Emperor alive. He needs to face justice for what he did to Nova Terra. The Ghost Battalion dropped from orbit in stealth pods. They landed directly on the palace grounds. Immediately, they encountered fierce resistance. The Emperor's personal guard fought with suicidal determination. They knew surrender meant execution for their crimes. The battle through the palace was brutal. The Ghost Battalion fought room by room, corridor by corridor. Minho used explosives to breach reinforced doors. The team moved deeper into the massive structure, leaving bodies behind. Then the palace shook with a massive explosion. Emperor Vothrak had activated the building's self-destruct system. He would rather die than be captured. The entire structure began collapsing. We have minutes before this whole place comes down, Hyunwoo shouted. Move faster. At the same time, High Commander Draxon's forces were fighting their way into the palace from another direction. They encountered Hyunwoo's team in one of the main corridors. For a moment, both groups aimed weapons at each other. Wait, Draxon called out. We are here to capture the Emperor. We are here to surrender. Hyunwoo recognized Draxon from intelligence briefings. He lowered his weapon slightly. Then help us find him. This building is coming down. The two forces combined and raced through the collapsing palace. Draxon led them to the deepest bunker where Vothrak would have retreated. They blasted through the final door and found the Emperor waiting with his last loyal guards. A fierce firefight erupted in the confined space. The Emperor's guards fought with fanatic intensity. Minyo took out 3 guards with precisely placed explosives. Hyunwoo engaged in hand-to-hand combat with another. One by one the guards fell. Finally, only Emperor Vothrak remained. He held a weapon and looked at the humans and his own commander who had betrayed him. His eyes burned with hatred. "I will never surrender to inferior species," Vothrak said. "Better to die with honor." He raised his weapon. Lieutenant Choi Mina, who had joined the assault team after clearing the skies, shot first. Her weapon was set to stun. The blast hit Vothrak in the chest and he collapsed unconscious. "Secure him," Hyunwoo ordered. "We are leaving, now." The combined force evacuated the collapsing palace. Behind them, the massive structure fell into ruins. They carried the unconscious emperor to safety. The hunt was over. They had captured the being responsible for Nova Terra's destruction. 2 days later, High Commander Draxon formally surrendered the Vorath Empire to Admiral Han Jiho. The ceremony took place aboard the Retribution, with representatives from dozens of species watching. Draxon stood before Jiho and presented the terms of surrender. The Vorath Empire would be dissolved. All military forces would be disbanded. War reparations would be paid to humanity for generations. Human military bases would be established on all former Vorath worlds. Every officer involved in Nova Terra's destruction would face trial and execution. "And Emperor Vothrak?" Jiho asked. "He is yours to judge," Draxon said quietly. "He will face human justice for his crimes." Jiho looked at the surrender document. These terms would reduce the Vorath from galactic power to occupied territory. Their civilization would never recover its former strength. But they would survive. That was more mercy than they had shown Nova Terra. He signed the document. The war was officially over. Ambassador Yoon Ji-won watched the ceremony with mixed feelings. Humanity had won. The Vorath would never threaten anyone again. But the cost had been terrible. Billions were dead on both sides. The galaxy would never forget what humanity was capable of when pushed. After the ceremony, she spoke privately with Admiral Jiho. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now comes the hard part," Jiho said. "We must learn to live with what we have done. We must rebuild not just the Vorath worlds, but our own souls. We became what we needed to become to survive. Now we must find our way back to what we were. Do you think we can? After everything?" Jiho looked tired, older than his years. "I do not know. But we must try. For the sake of those who died. For the sake of those who will come after us." Emperor Vothrak was taken to Earth to await trial. He would face charges of genocide before an international tribunal. The trial would be broadcast across the galaxy, just as he had broadcast Nova Terra's destruction. This time justice would be the message sent to all species. In the brig of a human ship, Vothrak sat alone in his cell. He had lost everything. His empire, his power, his people's respect. He would die soon, executed for his crimes. But even facing death, he felt no remorse. A guard brought him food. As the human turned to leave, Vothrak spoke. "You think you have won, but look at what you became to defeat me. You used biological weapons. You starved civilians. You became as ruthless as you claim we were. In destroying us, you destroyed yourselves." The guard stopped but did not turn around. "You are right. We did terrible things. But there is one difference between us and you. We did it to survive, to protect our people from extinction. You did it for entertainment. For pride. That difference is everything." The guard left and Vothrak sat alone with his thoughts. Perhaps the human was right. Perhaps that small difference mattered. But it was too late for the Vorath Empire. Too late for his people. Too late for him. Across the galaxy, species watched as the Vorath Empire was dismantled. Some felt relief that the threat was gone. Others felt fear of humanity's demonstrated power. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity valued peace. They preferred cooperation and friendship. But when threatened, when their children were killed, they became the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They would go to any length to protect their own. They would use any weapon, accept any cost, endure any sacrifice. The Vorath had broadcast the massacre of Nova Terra to demonstrate their power. Instead, they had awakened something they could not control. They had learned too late that the most dangerous enemies are not the aggressive warriors, but the peaceful beings who fight only when they have no choice. Because when peaceful beings finally fight, they fight without restraint. They fight to win completely. Operation Alien Extinct was over. The Vorath Empire was destroyed. Earth stood as the dominant power in the galaxy. But the real challenge was just beginning. Could humanity find its way back to the peaceful civilization it once was? Or had the war changed them forever? Dr. Kim Sora sat in her laboratory, looking at the weapons she had created. The singularity cannon, the biological plague, the nanobots, tools that had helped win the war but at a terrible cost to her conscience. She made a decision. These weapons would be dismantled. The knowledge would be locked away. Humanity would not make the same mistake twice. Captain Lee Daeho took command of the peacekeeping forces overseeing Vorath territory. His job now was not to destroy but to rebuild, to help former enemies become something better. It would take years, maybe generations, but it was necessary work. Lieutenant Choi Mina became an instructor at the new Galactic Defense Academy. She trained pilots from dozens of species, teaching them not just how to fight but why fighting should always be the last option. Her students respected her not just for her skills but for her wisdom earned through brutal experience. Major Park Hyun-woo and his Ghost Battalion were dissolved. The unit had been too effective, too ruthless. Instead, Hyun-woo helped establish diplomatic protection services,